On a bright, sunny afternoon at Palm Beach, the vibrant atmosphere of the crowded shopping area was suddenly disrupted by an unexpected traffic incident. Amid the steady flow of cars moving in an orderly fashion, a silver car appeared out of nowhere, silently gliding by, yet in the opposite direction of the traffic. The scene immediately became the focal point of attention, not only because of its unusual nature, but also due to the obvious danger it presented. Each vehicle had to slam on their brakes, the blaring horns pierced through the chaos, and the confused gazes of pedestrians were fixated on the car heading the wrong way. A nearby police car sped towards the scene, moving swiftly like a whirlwind through the stillness. The sirens wailed, like a bell tolling, signaling to everyone around that an emergency was unfolding. In that moment, the air seemed to be cut through, replaced by a palpable tension, signaling that the situation could take an unpredictable turn at any moment. The officer, cold yet determined, slowly approached the disruptive car. Without haste or confusion, he maintained a professional demeanor, fully focused on his task. His original goal was clear and simple, not to punish or create further trouble, but to ensure that everything would return to order. He signaled for the car to stop, each movement made with precision and care, ready to guide the driver to correct the course and avoid potential danger. However, instead of the expected cooperative response, the silver car continued to speed forward, as if unaware of the seriousness of the situation. It did not slow down. In fact, it seemed to accelerate, further intensifying the already heavy and tense atmosphere. The people around, who had been absorbed in their daily routines, suddenly stopped, went silent, and all eyes turned toward the car. They held their breath, staring at it as if waiting for a sign to know what would happen next. At that moment, the situation was no longer just a minor traffic infraction, but had evolved into an increasingly uncontrollable scenario, taking on the shape of a more thrilling tale than anyone could have imagined. Every passing second seemed to stretch, with every gaze fixed on the car, no one knowing for sure what would come next, but all sensing that the danger was escalating with every minute. The tension, like a taut string, was ready to snap. A seemingly small mistake, a car driving the wrong way on a one-way street, had opened the door to a series of events no one could predict. The traffic incident at Palm Beach, which seemed like a simple misunderstanding at first, quickly escalated into a situation far more tense than anyone could have imagined. A sense of unease permeated the air, as though every passing second carried an unpredictable danger. The silver car, with its loud engine and solitary presence amidst the flowing traffic, stubbornly continued driving against the flow on a one-way street, ignoring all warning signals from the officers. Despite the officers' patience and caution, they could not ignore the ever-growing threat posed by the situation. The continuous blare of the police sirens shattered the calm of Palm Beach, like a loud emergency signal. The flashing lights of the police cars reflected on the pavement, creating an intense scene that only emphasized the instability of the situation. The officers, with their calmness and professional experience, did not falter but signaled for the driver to stop, firmly requesting that the woman turn the car around to avoid not only risking her own safety but also that of everyone around her. In this tense situation, their goal was not punishment, but to protect the absolute safety in an increasingly complex and dangerous scenario. However, contrary to all expectations from the witnesses, the woman was not only confused but seemed completely overwhelmed, as if she were caught in a panic she could not control. Instead of listening and cooperating, she repeatedly refused to comply with the officer's request, showing no signs of understanding the gravity of the situation. She seemed oblivious to the fact that she was putting herself and those around her in danger. Despite the officer's efforts, her lack of cooperation only made the situation more tense and unpredictable. The officer's eyes, which had previously reflected calm, now showed clear signs of confusion and concern, as he realized that the situation was no longer just a traffic violation, but was turning into a serious and imminent threat. The woman's failure to grasp the urgency only intensified the tension, like a high-stakes game between safety and risk. Every moment of hesitation on her part pushed the situation closer to a point of no return, rendering the officer's patience and composure seemingly meaningless in the face of her recklessness. This made the situation not just a simple traffic violation, but a painful lesson about irresponsibility and the failure to cooperate in tense situations, where calmness and cooperation are key to preventing unforeseeable consequences. The repeated warnings from the officers seemed utterly useless, as if blown away by the winds of rising tension. Despite the officers' patience and efforts to remain calm, the woman not only refused to cooperate but also exhibited clear signs of instability in her behavior. Her awkward, uncontrolled gestures and defiant attitude only served to escalate the situation. The air around them grew heavy, as if everything was about to explode in a moment filled with anxiety and uncertainty. Her refusal to comply with the officer's simple request was no longer a minor incident, but a signal of escalating instability. As the car continued to accelerate and weave through the narrow road, the situation became increasingly dangerous, and the officers could not help but feel the looming threat hanging over them. Every move she made felt like a sharp knife, cutting deeper into the officer's control, pushing the situation into a dead end with no way out. Her lack of cooperation not only complicated the situation but also heightened the tension, causing not only the police but also the witnesses to hold their breath in fear. At this point, everything was no longer just a traffic violation. It was a series of unexpected events spiraling into an unpredictable abyss. As the situation grew increasingly unpredictable, the driver's decisions were no longer merely acts of stubbornness, but had reached the level of a blatant challenge to the authorities striving to maintain order and safety. Every action she took, from continuing to drive the wrong way to refusing to cooperate, not only exposed her lack of awareness but also showed a blatant disregard for the power of those enforcing the law. The officer's patience, though still intact, was beginning to wear thin, as though one more small mistake would be the breaking point. In such a tense and deadlocked situation, where every warning had proved ineffective, they had no choice but to call for backup. In an instant, another police car sped toward the scene, causing the situation to change dramatically. The two police cars, with their flashing red and blue lights continuously reflecting strongly on the road, created a tense atmosphere, signaling that everything was escalating quickly and could explode at any moment. The lights, like bright flashes of lightning, heightened the tension, creating a space that seemed to shut down any chance of escape. Each light reflected not only the presence of the authorities but also a sign of extreme tension, where a confrontation could break out at any moment. At this point, the situation was no longer a simple traffic violation. It had become a tense struggle between reason and emotion. The arrival of the support forces only added pressure on the woman, turning the situation into a tug-of-war between stubbornness and reason, between calm and panic. With each passing second, everything seemed to teeter on the brink of an explosion, like a ticking time bomb counting down. Tension rose with every moment, as the heavy air seemed to be waiting for a slight touch to shatter everything. This situation was not just a lesson in cooperation, but also a testament to the power of decisiveness, and a warning for all those who live in the moment of thoughtlessness, where one wrong decision could turn a simple situation into an unpredictable disaster. The situation in Palm Beach quickly spiraled out of control, escalating to a level of tension no one could have predicted. The woman, with her stubborn attitude and refusal to yield, continued to show strong resistance, as if each reasonable request from the officers was an unforgivable insult. Despite the officers repeatedly asking her to get out of the car, she stood firm, each time raising her foot from the seat as if it were a defeat she could not accept. She placed herself in an impasse, creating a solid wall that even the officers, despite their efforts to stay calm, had to face a challenge beyond their control. Instead of complying with the requests to keep the situation manageable, the woman grew even more stubborn, responding fiercely to each police intervention. The exchanges between her and the officers became not only increasingly heated but also saturated with extreme tension, like an endless verbal battle. She constantly accused the authorities of abuse of power and harassment, causing the already stifling atmosphere to become even heavier, full of challenge. Her words were like sparks of hatred, each sentence directly impacting the composure of those around her, fanning the flames of tension that no one could extinguish. Every word from her was like a bullet shooting straight into the minds of the officers trying to maintain order, making the situation harder and harder to control. Each step, each word not only made the situation more tense but also complicated matters further. Her fierce resistance was not only a refusal to comply with the police intervention, but also a public challenge to the authority and regulations put in place to protect public safety. As her accusations grew, the patience of the officers seemed to be wearing thin. From the initial gentle requests, they now had to face an increasingly intense confrontation, a situation no longer just a traffic violation but a lesson in disobedience, about the unpredictable consequences when those responsible fail to maintain control. Each passing moment in this situation felt like a test, as her stubborn attitude not only heightened the tension but also opened up an unpredictable and dangerous scenario. What seemed to be a simple situation had erupted into a tense crisis, where every word, every action could determine the course of the story. The woman's lack of cooperation was not only making it difficult for the officers to control the situation, but also turning the moment into an inevitable tense spectacle in the midst of a crowded shopping area filled with passers-by. Every word of argument, whether it was resistance or accusation, echoed in the surrounding space like explosions cracking the previously calm atmosphere. The eyes of hundreds of onlookers were fixed on the car, as if all the spotlight of attention was focused on this confrontation. Her words, carrying a strong challenge, seemed like every sentence was a direct slap in the face of justice, making not only the police but also the witnesses feel the escalating tension second by second. The officers, instead of calmly performing their duty, now had to face a much harder challenge than they had anticipated. The story was no longer a simple traffic situation. It had become a struggle, where not only the intervention of the law but also the stubborn resistance from the woman created a battle between reason and emotion, between duty and defiance. The officers were no longer merely enforcers of justice. Now they had to fight to maintain order in a situation that far exceeded their preparation. The tension was not only high for the woman but also pushed the officers into a difficult position, where every decision could cause a major change in the course of the event. Outside, the onlookers could feel the heightened tension from both sides, realizing that this was no ordinary traffic violation. This was a confrontation between the power of the law and the unyielding stubbornness of an individual. The atmosphere at the scene was like a stretched guitar string, heavy and ready to snap at any moment. The people standing around dared not breathe too loudly, as if they knew that just one small mistake, one wrong step could make everything worse. Each passing moment, instead of resolving the situation, made it more complicated, and the concern about what could happen in the future became increasingly palpable. This confrontation was not only a challenge for the officers but also a painful lesson about patience, emotional control, and reasoning in highly tense situations. It felt as though everything was on the verge of exploding, and without timely and proper intervention, this situation could easily lead to a catastrophic outcome, not only for the woman but also for those around her. In the tense moment of the argument, when the exchanges grew sharper and more challenging, a suspicious sign suddenly appeared, like a warning bell ringing in the stifling air. The unmistakable, strong smell of alcohol filled the officers' nostrils, immediately catching their attention and completely changing their attitude toward the situation. Their initial feeling was one of surprise, but soon after, a real concern began to rise in their minds. The smell of alcohol was not just an inconvenience, it was a clear sign of potential instability. This woman could be driving under the influence, creating a risk not only for herself but for everyone around her. With this suspicion, the officers could no longer deal with her as they had before. Every action of hers, every refusal, now took on a different tone. No longer was this just a confrontation between a traffic violation and the demands of justice. It had now become a serious public safety issue. The smell of alcohol was a clear warning, not only signaling danger for the woman but also triggering an immediate response from the police. The presence of alcohol had not only changed the atmosphere but also raised concerns within the officers. The tension in the air grew stronger as every decision had to be made in an unpredictable situation. Requesting a breathalyzer test was no simple step. It was a necessary action to protect public safety. The police, recognizing the seriousness of the situation, began to take the necessary steps to verify the woman's condition, not only to address the violation but also to prevent a potential disaster if she continued driving while intoxicated. What was once a routine traffic violation had now developed into a much more complex confrontation. It was no longer a story of a person breaking the law. It was the intersection of legal issues and public safety. Asking for a breathalyzer test was not only a law enforcement action, but also a warning to everyone who faced a choice between reason and emotion. The police could not let a small mistake turn into a large disaster, and they knew that every moment of hesitation could lead to an unforeseen incident. From that point on, every decision the officers made carried immense weight, not only to maintain order but also to protect the lives and safety of everyone around. The presence of alcohol was not just a sign of wrongdoing but a painful reminder of the importance of staying calm and in control in tense situations. The officers' responses, from conducting the breathalyzer test to the subsequent actions, were no longer just crucial decisions but could also be a matter of life or death for the safety of the community. However, instead of cooperating as expected, the woman remained stubborn and resolutely refused, despite all the sincere and thorough explanations the officers tried to convey. Even though the officers continued to explain the serious legal consequences she could face if she persisted in resisting, her defiance did not waver. Every reminder, every warning about the severity of the situation seemed like a breeze, unable to blow away her thick stubbornness. She seemed trapped in her own world, where reason and persuasion no longer had any effect. The officers, who had faced many challenging situations in the past, now stand before a daunting challenge. They are not just dealing with a simple traffic violation, but confronting a person who exhibits extreme resistance and an uncooperative attitude. Each time she refuses to comply, the atmosphere at the scene thickens, becoming more tense. Her attitude is not simply one of opposition but seems like a challenge to authority and the law, making the officers feel a growing sense of frustration. Despite all the officers' efforts, the woman's determination makes the situation increasingly tense and uncomfortable. No matter how clear the explanations, they seem like mere fragments of sound, powerless to convince. Every time she shakes her head, every time she refuses to follow the officer's orders, the tension in the air rises dramatically, as if a time bomb is counting down. The woman is not just a traffic violator. She is the catalyst for a situation that could escalate into something extremely dangerous and unpredictable. The officers clearly realize that the issue is no longer just a legal matter. It is now about maintaining order and ensuring the safety of everyone present. Her lack of cooperation not only escalates the tension but also pushes everything to a point beyond control. With every passing moment, their efforts feel like arrows being shot against a solid wall of stubbornness. The air is heavy, and anyone observing can sense the impasse, while the woman seems unaware that her opposition is not just a mistake, but is pushing the situation into an irreparable direction. Her uncooperative attitude doesn't just complicate the situation but also forces the officers into an extremely difficult position, compelling them to take stronger measures to protect public safety and enforce the law. With each passing second, the situation grows more tense, like a taut string of a bow, ready to snap at any moment. Her refusal not only increases the danger but forces the officers to make a series of decisions, steps they can no longer avoid, whether they want to or not. From a minor traffic incident, everything has gradually transformed into an uncontrollable confrontation between the determination to enforce the law and the woman's unyielding stubbornness. Every action the officers take now must be calculated with precision, as if they are playing a life-or-death game of chess, where each decision could lead to unpredictable consequences, potentially altering not only the life of the violator but also the lives of everyone present at the scene. Every request, every intervention is carefully considered because any mistake could escalate the situation, putting everyone at risk. Any action, whether a small step or an accidental word, could provoke an unpredictable reaction from the woman or even escalate the situation into violence. Furthermore, the tension at this moment is no longer just a traffic issue, but has become an intense battle of wits, where the officers are not only facing a legal violation but also struggling against the woman's obstinacy and lack of cooperation. The determination to enforce the law seems to be nearing the limits of patience. Instead of resolving the issue smoothly, they are faced with the harsh reality that each passing moment could increase the danger, not only for the woman but for everyone at the scene. The situation has completely spiraled out of control, and every decision now will determine not only the safety of those involved, but also that of the surrounding community. The atmosphere is so tense that one can feel the weight in the air, as if everyone around is waiting for an explosion, and one wrong move could cause everything to collapse. This situation is not just a test for the officers. It is also a lesson on the limits of patience and endurance, on the importance of maintaining order and decisiveness in tense situations. Ultimately, the woman's resolute refusal to cooperate has brought the situation to an unavoidable turning point. All the officers' efforts to resolve the situation peacefully, by asking her to exit the vehicle and comply with instructions, have been completely ineffective. She continues to resist, as though she believes that maintaining her stubbornness will allow her to escape the grasp of the law. Each word of refusal is not only a protest against the officers, but also a declaration of war against authority and the administration of justice. What began as a simple incident has now become a tense struggle, where everything could change in an instant. When one of the officers begins to carry out the task of handcuffing her, the situation immediately escalates. Her actions are no longer simply an ordinary resistance, but a clear act of violence. She suddenly kicks one of the officers, a direct assault. The kick is not only an outburst of anger, but also a clear sign of escalating violence in this situation. With every passing second, the tension mounts, threatening the safety of both the woman and the officers carrying out their duties. Her strong kick has made the situation much more complex and dangerous. It is no longer just a traffic violation or a refusal to cooperate, but a serious confrontation between an individual and the law enforcement officers. This act, though carried out in anger, has heightened the severity of the matter, taking it to an entirely new level. The sense of unease and tension in the air is palpable, like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. The assault on the officers not only increases the danger, but also completely alters the approach to handling the situation. The officers, who are already facing a difficult situation, are now confronted with a direct threat to their lives and safety. Every subsequent decision must be thought out carefully, as the safety of everyone involved will depend on the immediate response. The escalation of the woman's actions not only forces the officers to take stronger measures, but also makes the atmosphere taut as a string, ready to snap at any moment. This is no longer a simple incident, but a battle of wits and strength between the officers and the woman. The officers now face a difficult choice: how to ensure the safety of themselves and those around them while still adhering to the principles of power and fairness. Every move, every reaction could lead to unpredictable consequences. She has not only defied the law but also directly changed the way the officers must respond, turning this confrontation into a fierce, tense, and risky battle. The woman's sudden action, though lasting only a few brief seconds, has completely changed the course of events, turning it from a minor traffic violation into a high-stakes, tense, and dangerous situation. In that instant, her fierce resistance is not just a refusal to comply with the law but also escalates the matter, transforming it into a fierce confrontation between authority and stubbornness, between reason and emotion. Her attack on the officer is not just an act of defiance but also opens the door to a series of serious legal consequences that she cannot foresee. In addition to the charge of driving under the influence, she now faces a charge of assaulting a law enforcement officer, an offense that could lead to severe penalties and elevate the seriousness of the situation to an entirely new level. The atmosphere at the scene immediately becomes tense and chaotic, as if everything is on the verge of exploding. The officers, already strained by her defiance, now face an increasingly complex situation. The woman's actions have made every decision they make more difficult than ever. Should they continue to apply force to subdue her, or should they try to handle the situation more reasonably without making it worse? Every passing second increases the tension, as the officers not only have to deal with an uncooperative woman but also with an audience watching their every move. The presence of many onlookers not only increases the tension but also complicates the situation further. Every gaze is focused on the confrontation between the police and the woman, creating considerable psychological pressure on the officers. They must not only handle the situation reasonably and safely, but also maintain the image and credibility of law enforcement in front of those around them. Every move, every decision they make now could become a topic of discussion and judgment, making the situation even more complicated. This confrontation is not only a struggle between the officers and an individual, but also a battle over power and the enforcement of law in a society full of challenges. When people around witness the officers' actions, they are not only evaluating their ability to execute justice but also observing how the law is applied in such tense situations. Every decision, big or small, can affect the image of the police and the law in the eyes of the public. This situation, painfully, has shown that the woman's obstinacy not only complicates the matter but also causes everything to spiral out of control, taking the situation to a point of no return. The chaos, the looming threat of violence, and the escalating tension make every subsequent action of the officers a life-or-death decision, impossible to make without careful consideration. Both the police and the onlookers are faced with a great challenge: how to maintain order while ensuring the safety of everyone, when even a small mistake could lead to unpredictable consequences. At this point, the situation is beyond control, and the officers are not only performing their duty but also facing an unpredictable risk. Every step they take carries immense responsibility, not only to protect public order but also to safeguard the lives and safety of everyone present. As violent gestures no longer come from one side but begin to spread, the officers clearly see that this is no longer just a confrontation between the law and defiance, but a life-or-death battle between reason and anger, between power and resistance. The situation has become increasingly complicated as the intervention of law enforcement officers is no longer just a pure legal task. It has turned into a life-or-death struggle, not only to enforce the law but also to maintain order in an ever-changing society where every decision could alter the course of events. The officers must now confront the woman's obstinacy and determination while dealing with a situation that escalates by the second. Every move, every word is carefully calculated because a small mistake could lead to irreversible consequences. What makes the situation even more tense is not only the violent resistance from the woman but the clear understanding that sometimes a small action, even from one individual, can lead to serious, unpredictable consequences. A kick, a poorly calculated word, or an unnecessary act of resistance could trigger a domino effect, leading to a chaotic and dangerous outcome. The officers now face the dilemma of how to keep the situation from spiraling out of control and how to protect everyone involved without letting the escalating tension push the situation into violence. Each second feels like an eternity, each action carries monumental risk, and no one knows what the future holds. However, that's not all. The charge of assaulting law enforcement officers, even if it was a spur-of-the-moment act in a tense situation, has heightened the seriousness of the incident. She didn't just commit traffic violations but escalated the confrontation, setting a precedent that cannot be ignored in dealing with authorities. These charges put her in an even worse legal situation, with consequences that could last a lifetime. What started as a seemingly simple situation has now led to heavy fines, the potential for long-term detention, and a conviction that could affect her future. These charges not only make her pay a price within the legal system, but also place her at the center of public attention. Palm Beach, where the incident occurred, has become the focus of all eyes, turning her into a symbol of lack of restraint and unnecessary confrontation with authorities. The media and local people are constantly discussing, evaluating, and commenting on her actions, making her the subject of public opinion. In a society where image and legal compliance are paramount, her actions are not just a legal story but a warning about the importance of staying calm and respecting societal regulations. While the officers continue to follow procedure and carry out necessary formalities, the woman not only refuses to cooperate but also expresses ongoing dissatisfaction and resistance. She insists she is being treated unfairly, almost as a cry for help, reflecting her growing frustration and anger. With a tense, defensive tone, she demands to see a doctor, claiming that her health has been severely affected throughout the arrest process. However, this not only complicates the situation but also reflects a confusion between concern for herself and the impulsive actions she's taken. As the officers maintain their stance, Performing their duties patiently and cautiously, she continues to justify her actions. She even offers personal reasons, emphasizing that she needs to go home immediately to care for her pet dog and fulfill important family responsibilities. This is one of the factors that makes the situation even more awkward, as she turns what could be very ordinary reasons for a woman into a serious situation, making others feel the contradiction between her impulsive actions and the sense of family responsibility she is demonstrating. While these excuses might evoke some sympathy from certain people, they cannot diminish the gravity of the situation. She not only violated serious traffic laws but also showed a lack of cooperation with authorities, further escalating the situation with unreasonable and illogical demands. The personal reasons she presents, though somewhat sympathetic, cannot mitigate the wrongs she has caused. The confusion between her sense of responsibility and her impulsive behavior creates an unresolved contradiction, demonstrating a lack of restraint and awareness of the consequences of her actions. At that point, her excuses were no longer a way to protect herself but only added to the tension, making the situation even more unpredictable. The incident at Palm Beach is not just a legal lesson but a lesson in the consequences of hasty and thoughtless decisions during tense moments. The woman's actions triggered an unpredictable chain of events, leaving a lasting impression not only on the police force but also on the minds of the local people who witnessed the entire event. It was her non-cooperation, defiance, and lack of awareness of the seriousness of her behavior that turned an already tense situation into a more complicated one. Each justification, each act of resistance, although perhaps a natural reaction to coercion, became the catalyst for a fierce confrontation between the individual and the law. Her resistance not only increased the tension of the situation but also created a negative image of disrespect for the power of the law. It rings a wake-up call for anyone who thinks they can escape punishment without facing responsibility for their actions. With each wrong decision made in that moment, the woman not only faced serious legal consequences but also affected those around her, disrupting the lives of the community and leaving a profound impression on the witnesses. They didn't just witness an ordinary arrest, but the breakdown of order, of a process that should have gone smoothly. Her defiance was not just a personal act, but a symbol of the repercussions we face when we act without thinking carefully before we act. What happened will always be imprinted in the minds of the witnesses, serving as a reminder of the importance of keeping calm and considering every decision, especially in high-pressure and challenging situations. The Palm Beach incident, though over, leaves behind lessons that still resonate in everyone's mind as a deeply impactful reminder. It all began with a seemingly simple traffic violation, a car going the wrong way down a one-way street, a minor mistake anyone could make when careless. Yet, from that small mistake, the incident quickly escalated into a series of wrong decisions, each one making the situation more complicated and ultimately leading to irreparable legal consequences. Rather than facing the situation calmly and cooperating, the woman chose to react strongly, letting emotions overpower reason. The initial resistance was not just about failing to comply with the police's request, but also demonstrated an attitude of defiance and a lack of awareness of the seriousness of the situation. She allowed anger and anxiety to override her reason, making it difficult for her to clearly understand the nature of the issue, thereby making everything worse. Her stubborn actions not only escalated the tension but also pushed the situation beyond control. Her wrong decisions, from refusing to cooperate with the police to continuing her defiant behavior, not only made her face serious legal consequences but also affected the overall atmosphere of the community. It serves as a vivid illustration of the negative impacts that emotional outbursts and thoughtless actions can have and is a reminder that, in any situation, staying calm, thinking carefully, and acting reasonably is always the most important thing. This incident, therefore, is not just a legal lesson but also a lesson in self-control and clarity during critical moments. Every action, every decision in life carries unpredictable consequences. While mistakes may be inevitable, how we confront those mistakes, how we choose to react to life's challenges, is what ultimately determines the outcome. Through the tense event at Palm Beach, a clear and important message was sent. Compliance with traffic laws is not just a legal requirement but also a responsibility to oneself and the community. When everyone respects and follows the rules, They not only protect their own safety but also contribute to creating a safer traffic environment for everyone around them. A small mistake, like driving the wrong way on a one-way street, can lead to unforeseen consequences that affect many people, even causing unfortunate accidents. The lack of awareness of the importance of the rules led the woman in this case to pay a heavy price, and this is a reminder not only for her but for all of us about the need to comply with traffic laws in any situation. In addition, this event also highlights another equally important factor: cooperation with authorities in tense situations. Despite facing discomfort or disagreement, cooperating with the police and other authorities is always the most effective solution to prevent escalation, helping resolve the issue quickly and smoothly. Defiant attitudes and refusal to cooperate not only make the situation tense but also complicate the handling process, leading to more severe consequences. Our decisions in critical moments can lead to significant changes, and cooperative actions are always the ideal approach to protecting one's interests and avoiding legal trouble. More importantly, the ability to stay calm and handle the situation rationally is key. In stressful situations, keeping calm not only helps us control the situation but also minimizes impulsive reactions that can make things worse. An attitude of listening, understanding, and a willingness to cooperate are the keys to solving the problem effectively and avoiding regretful consequences. Instead of letting emotions overtake reason, each individual must learn to control themselves and face difficulties with clarity, thus contributing to creating a more civilized and safe society for everyone. From this tense event, a strong and clear message was sent. Seemingly small decisions in life, especially in urgent situations, can have far-reaching and long-lasting impacts, going beyond our control. Sometimes, just one hasty action or a thoughtless reaction can completely change the outcome of a situation and even create unpredictable consequences. This is not just a lesson about the potential risks we may face, but also a warning to stay alert and carefully consider every decision, especially when dealing with urgent or difficult situations. Remember that, in tense and uncertain situations, the three most important factors to help us overcome them are compliance with rules, cooperation with authorities, and staying calm. Following the rules is not just an obligation but also an action to protect oneself and the community, creating a safe environment for everyone. When facing difficult decisions, cooperating with authorities is a way to show understanding and respect for the law, while also helping to resolve the issue quickly and effectively. But most importantly, staying calm and rational will help us maintain control, preventing emotions from overtaking reason and making things worse. This also reminds us that in life, sometimes just one small decision in a moment can lead to long-lasting consequences, affecting not only ourselves but also those around us. Carelessness, thoughtlessness, or impatience can lead to tense situations, even causing serious legal trouble. Therefore, we need to cultivate the ability to control our emotions, stay alert, and be patient in every situation. A sense of responsibility and awareness of the consequences of our actions will be essential to overcome challenges, protect our interests, and contribute to the collective development of the community. Every situation in life, whether small or large, can become a valuable lesson if we know how to draw experiences from it. Keeping a calm, patient, and responsible attitude is the best way to face difficulties, not letting temporary emotions dictate our actions. Only then can we truly protect our core values and contribute to building a civilized, safe, and peaceful society. From this event, we can draw an important lesson about the importance of staying calm, following the rules, and cooperating with authorities in tense situations. A small mistake, in a moment, can lead to serious consequences, not only affecting ourselves but also impacting those around us. Therefore, patience, listening, and acting rationally are essential to resolve any issues smoothly. The big lesson here is that, in life, self-control and responsibility are the keys to overcoming challenges and contributing to a better future for society.